So say what you want, but I kind of like the new Carlton. Okay, so hold up. I know the new Fresh Prince of Bel Air reboot isn't a movie, and I also know everyone watching this probably hates the new Carlton. So before you write me off, let me explain. The Fresh Prince of Bel Air, in my opinion, was one of the greatest television shows of all time. It managed to tackle some pretty important themes such as race and class differences, especially within the black community. Its main purpose, however, was to bring a sense of unity amongst both black communities who experience great wealth as well as poverty. And it did exactly that for the most part, all while remaining lighthearted and fun. I appreciate that it could take characters from completely different backgrounds and somehow show them experiencing their own set of struggles, and in some cases, even the same struggles. The characters are all iconic, and their portrayals were honestly a huge reason the show was able to last for 6 full seasons on primetime television. Watching Will and Carlton butt heads led to some of the most iconic comedy and heartfelt moments to be placed on television. So taking all of this into consideration, you can only imagine how nervous I was when I heard they were getting ready to reboot the series. How could these new characters possibly compare to the legacy the characters from the original had left, especially someone like Carlton, who truly was a one-of-a-kind character? The answer lies in the fact that luckily the writers and producers for the reboot Bel Air didn't really try to recreate them at all. The show's tone is completely different, and so are the characters. To me, this was a great choice, especially when it comes to one character specifically. So today we'll be taking a look at why I actually like the new Carlton. So just to preface, I don't really like the new Carlton as an individual. Like, dude is definitely not someone I'd want to kick it with at all. However, I do like this version of Carlton for the show, because if you're going to recreate it, he had to be different. No one can duplicate Alfonso Ribeiro's portrayal, but more so seeing Carlton in a different light is actually a good thing in my opinion. In the original, we all know he and Will had their back and forths, but never genuinely seemed to hate each other. Even the foolishness in the early seasons didn't last long, and it definitely didn't feel sinister in nature. This version of Carlton doesn't like Will at all. He's also pretty popular in his situation, and both of these factors are why the new character works for me. They come from 2 completely different worlds, but unlike the original, this is a world in which Carlton has power and Will is the one who struggles to fit in the beginning. The way Carlton is in this version actually provides obstacles for Will, forcing his character to overcome things the OG would have never had to. Everything seemed to come easy to Will Smith's character in the original, and his character in the reboot actually has to go through problems that would probably be fairly realistic to anyone in his situation. So when the new Will does persevere, it actually feels earned, and seeing him have an imprint on Carlton's world has a larger impact here because Carlton actually is a star in it, instead of someone people barely notice or walk all over. Carlton's animosity also feels earned as well because of this. Instead of hating him simply for their differences, it's a bit deeper because he actually sees Will as a threat. And in order to see someone as a threat, you kind of have to see them as somewhat of an equal or someone who presents competition or a challenge. In the original, Carlton was essentially a nobody, so he never posed a threat to Will, and Will never looked at him as a threat either. And deep down inside, I always wondered what that might have looked like. I also think the new Carlton, while less enjoyable to watch, is a bit more complex of a character. Now, while we did get snippets of deep moments from the original Carlton, I think the more drama-focused reboot gives us a chance to explore the darker elements may exist with a character in a Carlton situation. In the original, Carlton comes off as a nerdy, preppy nuisance, and outside of a few quirks, he never really appears to be in conflict with his ethnicity. He stands up for injustice pertaining to black people when he sees fit, and he even iconically shuts down a myth that being a black rich kid doesn't automatically make you a sellout or less black. However, the reboot dares to show that a black kid born of privilege, hanging around other people born of privilege who don't necessarily share the same history of oppression your whole life, can have some adverse effects, such as not knowing how to talk to individuals of less fortunate circumstances, or allowing his white friends to successfully adopt saying the N-word without at least explaining that some people may find it offensive. The reboot shows a Carlton that could be just as real as the Carlton from the original Fresh Prince. A Carlton who may not even identify as black because he doesn't relate to certain black problems or struggles. Will's presence isn't just something he resents, it's something he doesn't understand. He's quick to judge Will for his problems with gangs and street life, yet fails to realize his own issues, i.e. snorting up crushed up Xanax in his spare time. While the original Fresh Prince took the route of making him a more kind of sympathetic kid who identifies with his race despite being naive to certain struggles they may face, the reboot chooses to show another path Carlton could have chosen. A reckless teenager who oozes privilege and disdain for people who he looks down upon. I was really hesitant about this show, but after watching its first episodes, I can honestly say I like the direction it's heading in. I like the spin on most of the characters. Nothing will ever compare to the original because while it was primarily a comedy, it had some really dramatic and emotional beats that will live rent-free in my brain forever. It's iconic in every sense of the word, and I'm not quite sure this reboot will reach that level. With that being said, I can see why Will Smith and others like DJ Jazzy Jeff thought it was a good idea to reboot the series. The story of Will, Carlton, Uncle Phil, and everyone could be told from many perspectives, and Bel Air chose a good one. I appreciate the story and thematic elements it chooses to touch on. I like the differences for the most part, especially the 180 we get from Carlton. He's a pretty despicable guy so far, but one that may be harboring his own set of demons that are worth exploring. Who knows? Maybe he and Will turn it around, or maybe they don't. I've always liked a good villain, and as of now, Bel Air may have one of the better ones to grace the TV in a long time. So what do y'all think of this reboot? How does it stack up to the original in your opinion? Do you hate Carlton, or do you hate Carlton? I imagine most of you guys do. I kind of do too, but like I mentioned, I do think it's a great spin on the character and it works for the show. Anyways, as always, thanks for watching, and if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and join this growing community. I promise we're just getting started and more great content is on the way. You guys stay safe out there, and I'll catch you soon.